let's start with the Colts. Let's start with what's going on with Jonathan Taylor as you and I are currently sitting here having a conversation on the Tuesday before Hall of Fame weekend. What do you got for me, Albert?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just another one of these situations that's difficult. He's coming off of an injury. He's obviously got a lot of miles on his legs, not only as a Colt going back to, Wisconsin. And, you can see the logic why the Colts might want to wait and see how he comes back off of, last year. But on the flip side, there's the fact that he's an NFL rushing champion. There's a consistency to his performance. There's his place in the locker room. And honestly, Rich, the reason I would pay him is in service to my young quarterback. We all know what, having Todd Gurley did for Jared Goff, what having Zeke Elliott did for Dak Prescott, right? We know that. And I don't think there's any question that Jonathan Taylor can be that guy for Anthony Richardson. So me personally, I think it would be worth the investment to make the guy happy, to take pressure off of your young quarterback, to make sure that you're in 2nd and 6. More often than you're in 2nd and 11, and know that he doesn't have to carry the offense. But, I think that this is sort of another one that's indicative of the way this stuff goes. And, part of it is the history of the position, which, this has been the way it's been forever. They just don't last forever. Part of it is that you get the prime of a guy's career while he's on his rookie contract more often than not. Part of it is that they're too easy to find. And that, the Super Bowl champions can start a 7th-round rookie at the position. Part of it's analytics and putting real values on positions. But, again, I'd argue that there's real value, too, in what that guy can mean for your young quarterback. So it's a tough situation all the way around. And, I think it's obviously gotten kind of ugly over the course of the last week.
Well, and it also involves players who are just aces, individuals. Saquon.
I know.
Jonathan Taylor. Anybody who's met Josh Jacobs knows his story and how what he's overcome. And it's very difficult to hear, with all due respect, somebody who was born into his position talk about how nothing's really earned, right?
Right.
And from a golf cart after having a conversation in his luxury bus. It's just a bad look. And some of these players are also some of the most popular players in the NFL because, again, I know this is reality football and how you build a roster in the league is through the quarterback and left tackle trenches. I understand that.
Yep.
But just to finish my sentence here, there is a large cross-section of the fan base in the NFL that follows the sport through fantasy football. And these are the most popular players that are being told you cannot get what Cole Kmet gets. That's the tone deafness of this situation. Yeah. And I understand wins and losses and roster building is paramount, but I'm that's where I'm kind of landing on why this sticks in a craw, Albert.
Maybe this is stop me if this is a stupid observation, but as you were saying that, it sort of kind of feels the way America's going, with layoffs and putting value on people's heads and analytics telling you how much this person is worth versus that person and treating people like pieces of real estate, right? Sort of doesn't it sort of feels that way. And I just think that this is sort of that, and I don't want to blame analytics for everything, but analytics are how we've gotten to the point where it's the left tackle, the edge rusher, the corner, the quarterback, those are the guys you pay, right? And I think it's also how, you kind of come to cold values on players. And, I think a lot of times you can get excited because those things can lead you to the right decisions. The problem is, you are taking the part out of it where these guys are human beings. And, to kind of build off of your point about who Jonathan Taylor is and who Josh Jacobs is and who Saquon Barkley is, how does that resonate in your locker room? If you're a new head coach coming in, Shane Steichen in Indianapolis, or, relatively new, like Josh McDaniel still is in Vegas, and Brian Daboll is in New York, the guys in your locker room are, they're, they know the score. They're trying to make as much money as they can while they still can as football players. They're paying attention to who you're rewarding. They're also paying attention to who you're not rewarding. And so, when there's a guy like a Josh Jacobs, a Jonathan Taylor, or a Saquon Barkley, and you don't reward him, there's a cost to that. I think it's a big part of why the Giants did what they did to get him in and gave him the sweetener, was because I think Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen recognized, this is not the guy we want off the reservation. You know what I mean? This is a guy who, stands for everything we're trying to build here. Maybe he's not going to be here for the next 5 years, but we want our locker room to know we appreciate him,
Right. And I also just want to say here, since we're having this conversation, Albert, that just because I left some names off the list, like Henry and Eckler or what have you, those are also aces individuals. And I also, think a lot, positively, and think, on occasion, the world of Jim Irsay. I thought his stance with Dan Snyder was gutsy when a lot of other owners said nothing. And so, but to hear him say, hey, you got to earn your spot, and as if Taylor hasn't already. And then, of course, his own history, Jim Irsay's, with the team and in how he got it. It's just terribly unfortunate. But what is the way out? Are they going to really NFI him? Is that legitimately the way that they're going to go, Albert?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But if they're really pushing for him to come back and show up and get out on the practice field, then I guess it's one way to do it. What are you doing to your locker room at that point, though? What are you going to get from him coming back in? How engaged is he going to be? That's the other thing, is what percentage of the player are you going to get? Running back's not a position where you want a guy out there protecting himself. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm worried about, what's going to happen next. And so, I think that's part of it too. I think, Cleveland's a great example, right? Because I don't think there's a more analytically driven organization in the league than the Cleveland Browns, right? And they've gone all in on it. And, obviously Paul DePodesta has been there, and Andrew Berry very much subscribes to a lot of things analytically, and Kevin Stefanski too. Yet they paid Nick Chubb. Do you think they regret that? Or do you think that they went in and they recognized, this guy's different. This guy's an outlier. This guy's so important to what we're trying to build here, and so important to who we've been offensively. And there's such benefit for us in showing the rest of our locker room that we're going to reward Nick Chubb. It's totally worth it. And then what are we talking about? $12 million a year?
Right.
No offense to these guys. Hunter Renfrow and Cortland Sutton make $15 million a year. Who's the better player? You know what I mean? So it's if there's a bad year on the back end of that, it's is that really going to be a team killer? That you gave him $12 million a year? Probably not, right? So
they're odd hills to die on.
I think you add all of this up, and it's just, I think sometimes the problem with looking at these things so coldly is it creates absolutes, and there are exceptions. And you would think a player like Jonathan Taylor, just like Nick Chubb, would be worthy of being an exception.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.